What's up, family? It's your girl Jetty from Word Revolution. Um, let's have a little conversation about communication. For those of you that celebrate Christmas, I hope it's a lovely holiday for you. I also hope that you do come out of that kind of the pagan deception that it is. If you're celebrating Christmas, I hope that it is because you identify with and are celebrating the true meaning of it, which is paganism, and not um, having any connection to Messiah or anything like that. So if you are a person who follows the Messiah, aka the Christ, and you're celebrating Christmas, I hope that you get a clue and come out. Excuse me, no, be quiet, okay? Um, but if you're pagan and you're doing Christmas, that's your thing, and enjoy. Um, those of us who follow the Most High, I think in droves are coming to the realization that these holidays and the way that they are celebrated are not only not connected to the Most High and His teachings, but quite contrary in their essence, their formation, and their practice, their ritual, their tradition, all of it is exactly contrary to what the Most High, the God of the Bible, um, and or let's say the God of the scriptures from which the Bible was derived. The God of the actual Bible would be deception because the way that they form the Bible, but still, the real God that they hijacked to create the Bible, um, Christmas is not on his list of things to do. Okay, so not trying to pop nobody's balloon today, but far be it from me to not told y'all, okay? Because listen, when you get what you're gonna get, the word you're gonna get. When you get the word you're gonna get, it won't be said. Jetty didn't tell us that we wasn't supposed to, right? Just like y'all be telling me stuff I ain't supposed to. I'm telling y'all stuff y'all ain't supposed to. Christmas is not for the Most High's children. Listen, I am in a little hotel, super cute hotel, but this is the wiggliest, noisiest bed in the world, and it's irritating me to no end that when I now am live, here come all of these children who want to come be on this bed. So if I drop the phone and you hear a loud slap and cries and things like that, know that it's because these disrespectful children don't know how to enter a room when they see something is happening and be still and quiet, okay? So around here, we don't spare the rod and spoil the child. We slap the shit out of the kids when they're out of order. Okay, so I guess you guys noticed I cut my hair. So let's deal with that. Right? Let's deal with that. I don't know who remembers, but probably about a month and a half ago, the Most High told me to cut my hair, that it was time to cut my hair. And there were physical indications as well as literal, like, cut your hair. It had become just very, very itchy. It had become like cumbersome. It was um, like the energy of it had changed to where it was just saturated in the wrong kind of energy. I was very aware of people who had their hands in it and whose like DNA was captured in it. Um, and like I was struggling to try to like truly cleanse it of a lot of bad energy, germs, like all this stuff. I was starting to freak out, feeling like I might have had bugs. Y'all, I even thought I had mange, okay, because I couldn't stop scratching. My head was itching like crazy. And the Most High was like, it's time to cut your hair. And so, of course, I didn't really want to admit that that was the Most High. I'm like, I'm tripping because I didn't want to cut it. I had just grown it back to a place that it was getting to where I could put it all in one ponytail. That this is this is actually the third time I've cut significant locks. The first time they were about 10 years in. The second time they were about this far in, maybe about 2 to 3 years in, and I cut them, and now this is the third time, and I was 3 years in when I cut it this time. So that was one of the sticking places of disobedience that I had been stuck in for the past couple of months. And so um, I guess I spoke to you guys about this call to obedience. This call to obedience that I had been struggling with over there were certain things. Get out! Shut the door. This call to obedience that I had been really struggling with, some things that I didn't want to be obedient about, and so there was, in particular, being mean to people was one thing, but it wasn't the only thing. That was like the major thing. But the cutting of the hair was one of those things. And so the Most High spoke a curse over my household, which was funny because the curse was actually a blessing. Because of this particular series of disobedient acts that I had participated in. Would have resulted in the forfeiture of my called destiny. And as a mercy, the Most High restored my destiny, which He actually took from my hand at a point. And I wailed and cried out before Him, Lord, I'm sorry, I'll behave, I'll do it right, I swear, and all that. And He restored my destiny, but He told me that my house would be sick, that there would be plague of disease upon my house until the disobedience was atoned for. And so it's been weeks of that. And so last night, as I was laying here and I was just awake, whatever, and kind of in my space, meditating, praying, wondering how in the world I came all the way here without a Bible. I couldn't just read the Word, and it's like in this kind of a weird place. And the Most High was like, "So, are you actually going to do what I told you to do, or are you just going to act like you didn't ever get that instruction? We're just going to go on and act like that didn't happen." I'm like, "Oh, like cut my hair?" And they're like, "Yeah, like that." And I'm like, "Oh, you mean like now, or like?" When I get back home or something, like now? And like, yeah, like now. So I went into the bathroom and I cut my hair. So I didn't feel like I had to go all the way down to the roots. I cut it back to where it probably would have grown out to about a couple inches or so in the time since I was told to cut it. And so I just cut it back to, I don't know, I guess it's, what does this look like, an inch or so? Inch and a half in length. So it's funny because I had all of these people when I first got the inkling that I was to cut it back whenever that was, I got all of these people that were like, no, don't cut your hair. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's like all of this, it's your strength. It's your this, it's your that. All of these reasons and opinions on why I shouldn't cut it, which were all the reasons I already had for why I shouldn't cut it. So it's just funny. So I know for a lot of people it's very disappointing that I cut it. But I'm sorry, but I'm not here for you in that way. So I think I look like an old man now, which I don't know if I prefer the way that I feel like I look older to how I have issues with how like everybody always thinks I'm some child. Nobody, when I say like, no, I'm a whole grandmother, like I have a daughter who will be 30 in a few years, like I'm a grown up. People treat me like I'm like some college kid a lot of times. So I'm happy for the way I think this makes me look older. Like you can see the age in my face more, I think, this way. But I also feel like I look like a man. So I'm like, I still wanted to look like a girl, but listen, little earrings and lipstick will go a long way. But I did not do it for vanity's sake. But I think it's kind of cute. I mean, it just looks like little baby locks and starting over, which I don't mind starting over. And this is a very auspicious time to be starting over. And it also is something else I wanted to talk to you about. And I know I said we're going to talk about communication, and we are. But you guys, those of you that follow me and listen, y'all already know I'm a hot mess. We go round and around to get to stuff sometimes. Um, so something that's significant happened yesterday was there's a sister I especially admire. Um, and now she and I aren't like girlfriends, like hey girlfriend, but our sons are like pretty tight homies. And I admire and respect her, and I don't know if she admires or respects me. I've never asked her, but she's always kind to me, and she always gives me gifts, like these kind of gifts, right? Um, like the one time she um, implanted in me the importance of putting a handle before someone's name. Someone is either a sister or an auntie or a queen or like something, but and in particular the importance of sister and brother, because it literally builds a sense of community. And so this sister, I will be doing Kwanzaa with her and or kicking off Kwanzaa with her. But what happened was she when I met her, she had long, gorgeous, beautiful locks. And when I saw her yesterday, they were gone. And she looked so beautiful. And I was like, I was supposed to cut my locks. And she had the face like, she knew I wasn't lying. And then when I told her, I was like, there was so much to it. And I started to tell her how they were like starting to itch me nonstop. And I felt like my dog had mange, and like, what if I had mange? And like, I mean, I don't think people can, well, there is a type of mange that people can catch, but like, obviously I wasn't losing hair or anything, but like, I just had all of this. It was gross, right? I had been so sick. Like, I literally had taken to washing my locks in bleach because they were felt so like yucky. And as I was telling her about it, she was like, girl, I'm ready to go get the scissors. My daggone self. You need to cut it. And so I wasn't very surprised though to see that her hair was cut, because I know that oftentimes there's a corporate move. And so sometimes there's like a door that'll open, and only the people who've prepared can go through that door, right? And so I will not be surprised if there are many people who are cutting hair or making those kinds of changes or sacrifices or purges. Purges is the word I'm looking for. Like, people, there are purges that will have to happen in order for whatever this next spiritual door, or one of, I'm sure there are countless spiritual doors that are opening and closing at any given moment, but there's a particular movement with people who are nation builders. There is a particular, like, foundations have been laid, and I think for people that are going to go the next level and start to erect I guess the framing for what we're building now, there must be a purge in order for us to move into that next phase and to put something on the foundation. And so, if you are a nation builder, and however you define that yourself, I'm not looking to define that for you, but if you are a nation builder, and you have been feeling the urge or the need for some sort of purge, I strongly suggest doing it. Like ASAP. I think that this moon phase might have been like kind of a last window for doing it within the context of whatever this current um, anointing or window or whatever is. So I hope that those of you who did get that purge sense did purge whatever it was that you were supposed to purge. Um, I think that the moon phase tonight is now shifted, and so maybe it's. I'm not going to say too late, but maybe it's too late. So I'm glad that I last night was urged to go ahead and do what I was told to do. So all that to say, sorry for those of you who are always telling me how lovely I look in my locks, and if you're like, oh my god, I'm so disappointed and all of that, so sorry that your homegirl now looks like an old man. Okay, it is what it is. I'm still me. Um, I'll be super cute. I'll be super cute though when I put on earrings and lipstick. I love me with short hair typically, but um, so it is what it is. So there we go. Yes, I did cut my locks, and that is why. Okay, so now let's talk communication. Okay? And just so you know, my shirt doesn't just say "I love Dick." Okay. Whether or not I do, that's not what I'm advertising. It's my Dick Gregory shirt, and he actually signed it. You see his signature there on the heart. Maybe you can't see his signature, but he signed it. And for a long time, I was like, I'm not going to wear it. He signed it, but I'm like, no, you know what? I'd rather wear it and feel that power and let the shirt get old and ratty, but know that I wore it than like put it in some glass thing because it's like his signature. Like, I don't worship him, but I definitely want some of that anointing of truth telling and wisdom and insight. So yeah, my shirt says I love Dick Gregory, not I love Dick, for the record. Because I know that kind of stuff be important. What does sister call herself righteous? She got a shirt on that says I love Dick. Like, I don't have time for that. Okay, I love Dick Gregory. Okay, rest in power, brother. So communication. Let's talk communication. So we are really struggling, black people, with our communication skills. Now, I realize that I have a very high level of training in communication. So, which can cause communication issues. It's like if you have the person who has a super vast vocabulary, right? Which I don't have like one of those vast vocabularies. But let's say you have a person that has an extensive vocabulary. They are able to articulate excellently, but that doesn't mean that they're able to communicate excellently. Because if the people that they're talking to have limited vocabularies, their elaborate vocabulary actually undermines their ability to communicate, right? And so in certain contexts, that vocabulary is useful and enhances their ability to communicate if the audience also has the vocabulary. But if the audience doesn't have that vocabulary, the vocabulary is a hindrance and I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, because clearly I don't have a very vast vocabulary. I don't know what, but it's a block to communication, right? So we have so many blocks to effective communication within our communities that it is shocking and frustrating. Excuse me, what does she want?
Me to go with Miss Nisha.
Why?
Miss Nisha said that she can't keep up with Norma, Abraham, and me. She said you can only come back when your sisters come.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You stay put. Okay. So I'm sorry, you guys. We got kids trying to work out who's going where and who's not, and I'm just kind of in a place of no. Anyway, so we have all of these things that really hinder our communication. I am finding that communicating with black people right now, I can communicate with plants better. I can communicate with like the clouds better. Black people, we are entirely too sensitive, first of all. First and foremost. The internal voice that you hear, the internal dialogue, monologue, whatever it is, group discussion that you have going on in your head is way too loud, black people. Because you all are not processing what people are actually saying to you, what people are presenting to you for what it is. You are processing everything through these lenses of what you think they're trying to say, what you always are used to people saying, what you want them to be saying. Like, it is really time if we are going to be effective communicators. And for those of us who are nation builders, I don't know how you build nations with people you can't communicate with. How can two walk together unless they agree? How can two know if they agree if they can't even hold a decent conversation without people in their feelings and derailing the conversation? And then because you get in your feelings, now you want to end the conversation and there's nothing to talk about because you can't handle it because you're upset. I do not know what you're going to build on that, but it ain't finna last. I'll tell you that right now. I'll tell you that right now. You have got to silence what's going on in your brain and deal with what is actually being said. Deal with whatever is actually written. I'm not saying that there's a lot that in a conversation that's not said or written, that there's a lot of verbal, nonverbal stuff. There's a lot of like reading between lines, but I'm not talking about that. Okay? I'd like to use a conversation I was in last night as an example. Having a conversation with a brother, and he presented that I deal with lots of different people, different types of black folks. I really don't much deal with colonizers much at all. Y'all already know that. But in terms of the black folks that I deal with, everyone is not Team Most High, right? And so recently I was like finna cut everybody off that the Most High didn't say that one's mine, that one's mine. And the Most High was like, I didn't tell you to do that, right? I will show you how to conduct yourself with all of these characters. And even I had this strong admonishing. This actually took place around the time that I was supposed to originally cut my hair. Because I was like on some ain't not a colonizer, don't belong within 10 miles of me. And the Most High was like, I'm going to send who I'm going to send for what I'm going to send them for. And if I send a colonizer and I tell you that you're going to do whatever I tell you you're going to do with them, and he did not don't nobody get no ideas that, well, if the Most High tells you to marry them, how would you know? But no, he ain't not going to tell me to do that because he already told us don't do that, okay? He already told us don't do that. But he revealed to me that they have a purpose as well, right? And so he will give the instruction in terms of how to proceed with these different groups who are not necessarily, his, if you will. And so that was hard for me because bad enough I didn't want to deal with a bunch of random Negroes, okay, that got all kind of crazy contrary beliefs. And you know, from if you follow me, you know that I'm not speaking of like religion per se, but I mean, like, I have a really hard time dealing with people who are like these God bashers. I also have a really hard time with people who believe that they in and of themselves are the end all to be all, and that the, everything in the world revolves around their internal being and self and this and that. And while yes, it does in a sense, um, those people to me, I just don't understand how they ever have any problems if they're so powerful. It just doesn't make any sense. It's absurd to me. So I get frustrated with those types. And so I was really like, yay, the Most High is going to get all these crazies away from me. And he was like, yeah, not so much. And so I went through this period of just having to come to terms with the truth that the Most High is finna use anybody, right? Like, just like religions are tools and hammers and nails are tools, people are tools and mindsets are tools, and everything is subject to the agenda and the purpose of the Most High. And so he was dealing with me and letting me know that I am not the one who gets to decide what I will and will not use. Rather, he will show me how to use that which he brings before me if it is to be used. And this was in terms of people, mindsets, culture, and all of that. So I was saying this to this young man, and he flipped out because he was like, show me the scriptural reference where heathens were amongst the children of Israel during crisis or something like that. Or first it was among the children of Israel at all. And I was like, dude, that's all over the... I said, listen, I don't really want to do that with you. If you're looking for evidence that the Most High, because he was on some like, he can't build with nobody that's like not, I guess, Team Most High, right? Which, how do you even determine that? But neither here nor there. He was of that. And I said, well, listen, I don't have that stipulation, right? Like, the Most High showed me something else about that. And so he wanted me to show him scripturally proof that the Most High, that they were going to be anywhere near us. And I'm like, well, the proof is the law. The law gives us instructions for how to conduct ourselves with them. They're not to be leadership over us. They're not to be in the inner sanctuary. And we're not to marry them, right? Are the three key relational dynamics that are clear. And then there's examples like, we can't eat an animal that just kills over and dies, right? We have to eat an animal that was killed for that purpose. But we can, if I have a cow and it just gets old and dies, and there are heathens that live amongst us, strangers that live amongst us, I can give or sell that cow to them to eat. They can eat that, right? They can eat that. They have a whole different set of rules, and we have different rules for how we conduct ourselves with them. I can't give that to my Israelite brother, right? To my Hebrew brother or sister. I can't give them that meat, but I can give the stranger that meat and not be in any violation. So there are laws, specific laws about how to conduct ourselves. And so he at first was like, well, that's for when we're amongst them. And I'm like, no. It is for when they are amongst us, meaning they're within our camp, right? Not like you're the stranger in the strange land, but they're the stranger in your strange land. And so, I mean, how many scriptures are there for what to do and how to treat the stranger? Well, the Hebrews are our brothers and sisters. Consistently, that's who the Most High's children are called. And so there's your brothers and sisters, and then there's the strangers, right? And then there's the enemy, and there's like 3 different categories of people. Oops. There's your brothers and sisters, there's your enemies, and then there's the strangers. So the enemies are those who are contrary to the Most High, right? They want to destroy you. The strangers or those who come to you, they're not they're not of the children of the Most High, but they come and they are not adversaries to you, right? They are just not, they're not your enemy, they're just not your brother, right? And so, and this brother, I could see he was in an emotional, like he escalated so quickly when I even mentioned that that the Most High already told me that there will be some among me, and I needed to get my life together because I did not have the right to abuse them based on who they were and who they were not, right? And I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to speak for you and what you're doing, but as far as the call on my life, the Most High, like I just had went through this with the Most High, so I know that they will be at least among those of us that are near me, because he's already told me they're going to be near me. They're going to come. Now, I don't think in droves, but I don't know, right? And so he had such an emotional response to that I didn't even want to have a conversation. And so this was my first thing that I said. I said, listen, brother, I don't really want to have this argument with you. Here's what I suggest to you. If you want to know what the Most High says about something, read the law and ask the Most High to speak to you on it and to reveal to you what he's revealed to me. I'm not going to withhold from you what he's revealed to me. Now, that in any conversation amongst believers should be a very strong point in the conversation. That should be a point at which the conversation, a peace over whatever the question is, a peace should come over the conversation about that, right? And then there should then follow, and when I say should, that is if the conversation is one in which both parties are seeking true understanding. When someone says, well, let us go to the word. What does the law tell us about this thing? And let us go before the Most High and ask him to reveal to us truth. When a party interjects into the conversation, and this is when you're dealing with believers, okay? When one of the believer interjects that strategy into the conversation, anyone who takes issue with that now and will not accept that as the next move, they want you to personally prove something, or they want your personal reference or story, or they want anything outside of that for you to prove your point, is a huge red flag, and you should get out of that conversation as soon as you can. Abandon that conversation, and I would be very cautious when dealing with that individual ever at all. I would also wonder if that is a person that you might want to continue to consider your brother and sister under Yah. Because let's just put it in natural terms. No, let's just leave it there. Think about that. Two people have a misunderstanding about something. They both agree on the same authority. One says, let's go to the authority. The other wants anything except the final authority's word on it. Anything except that. What they want you to give them any number of proof for it that does not include that. They are offended that you suggested going to the final authority. That is a huge red flag. So a lot of times we get caught in these discussions with people that take that position, and then we end up in these disastrous conversations where people are disrespecting each other and hurting each other's feelings and misunderstanding and blah, 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 blah. When that's our red flag that this is not a healthy conversation to be in, because we've already decided that the authority that we both agree on is irrelevant. We are looking for some other justification, right? We're looking for some other thing to make and prove the point. So for those of us who follow the Most High, when you get to those sticky places, go to the Word. Now, what can happen though is because there's a time and a purpose for everything under heaven, right? Time and season for every purpose under heaven. The Word will, one point, say, slay everything, man, woman, child, and beast. And then another one will say, don't kill them, right? Just take them alive and bring them, or whatever, right? And then another yet will say, to show mercy and not to kill any of them, right? And one will say, just kill the men, and one will say, just kill the leader, like whatever, right? And I'm just throwing out random examples and of how you could have people go to the Word and say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then what would happen in a situation where parties are truly seeking understanding? You will look at the context, and how closely does the context that you're reading in the Word match the context of your particular situation. And so he wanted, so he didn't want to, I continued to invite him to go to the Word himself and to ask the Most High about it. But he didn't want to. He wanted me to prove to him in Scripture that ever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So it was a very strange conversation. And so he kept interrupting me as I tried to explain to him. I'm like, listen, you don't want to go to the Word as the final authority. But then when I tried to explain to you conceptually this thing, then he wants to show me one place in Scripture. Well, I already said, let's go to Scripture, and that pissed you off. So then now that I can do it sort of without the Scripture, that pisses you off, and you want to demand that I show you Scripture. Now that is another red flag, right? These conversational bullies that, okay, I have insight into something, right? I can do multiplication and you can't do multiplication. Or I know how to add negative numbers, right? I know how to end up with a -4, but you think that you can't take 8 from 4. You are sure that you can't take 8 from 4. And I'm like, well, while you can't take 8 from 4, there kind of is a way to take 8 from 4, because you would just end up with a negative number. And that doesn't make sense to you, so you spaz out. And so in your spazzing out, in the conversation, it's important to know, who are you in the conversation? Are you the person in the conversation that has insight that this other person doesn't have? Or are you the person in the conversation who seeks insight that this other person does have? Because if you're the person in the conversation who can't seem to pick up what the other person's putting down, you might want to shut up and allow them to lead the conversation. Never in the conversation should the person who is the one lacking understanding, which in this case it was this brother, he's the one asking me. I've been where he's at a long, long time, right? I've been there. I get that. I understand that. But he's not gotten to where I have in this particular context. And so I'm not seeking to understand the place he's in. My children can explain that place, right? So in that conversation now, he should not be directing me. He does not get to tell me how I'm going to bless him with the insight. Well, tell me this. Or, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to do. If you are the person in the conversation who is seeking to understand something that you don't understand, you don't get to direct the conversation. Okay? You don't get to tell the teacher how they're going to teach you the math. You don't get to do that. If you are the person in the conversation who you see that this person is lacking insight and understanding, something that you have insight and understanding of, and you know that you could very easily or with much difficulty get them to see it, if they cannot respect their position of need enough to humble themselves and allow you to do that however you see best, abandon that, because they don't actually want what you're offering. They don't want the insight. They want to fight with you because they're pissed off that you have something they don't have. They don't want to do the work to get it, though. They just want to take it from you. They want to undermine your own position of surety in it by causing confusion, emotional chaos. They want to do all of this stuff because they're basically pissed off that you got something that they don't have, right? Like they just want to pop your balloon or scribble on your drawing, or they don't actually want the insight, right? Because first thing, let us go to the word. What does the word say? Let us go to the law. What does the law say first? What does the law say, right? First, we look up the law, and then we see how is the law applied. What are the contexts in which you see this law played out, right? But first, if the first thing of going to the law is offensive, red flag number one. If your method for communicating it to them, whether you're a storyteller, I do a lot of storytelling. I use examples, right? So someone says, I don't understand so-and-so, and I will say, okay, I'll give you an example. And I do these like analogies. I do stories where I give a comparable, example. And so if they refuse that, and they insist that you have to meet certain demands, you must write a 4-page essay or do it in rhyme. I'll only accept the answer in rhyme, or whatever stipulations they put on how you must now communicate the information to them. These are red flags that this person is not seeking and doesn't value what it is that you're offering. Now, what they want is to have an emotional experience with you, right? And you can give that to them or not, but know that that is what you're doing. So then when they are unable to bully you in these ways, which he was just absolutely not, because I just stood my ground, because I already know what I know. So I don't know why you're going through all these changes. I already know what I know, and I already know where it is in the word, right? Like I totally know where it is in the word. We can go and I can show you and stuff. And so, then they go to the next place of accusing you of things. And there comes name calling and accusing and things like that. And they like to say things like, you won't let me talk. I shut that down all the time. Of course I won't let you talk, because you're the one that doesn't understand. So you should shut the hell up and listen so I can talk, so that maybe you can understand, because you elaborating on your lack of understanding. I mean, I don't want to get stupider by listening to you talk for 45 minutes. Shut the hell up. You don't know what you're talking about. So you should not be talking, right? People don't like that. They don't like when you are very like, yeah, you're right, I won't let you talk. And I'm actually not, you're not listening to me. Correct. I'm not listening to you because I am not interested in that. You want something I have. I don't want something you have. I don't want your understanding. I didn't ask you how you came to that conclusion. You asked me how I came to the conclusion I came to, which means you should not be talking. You should be listening. So when they start with the you won't let me talk, every time you make a point or about to make a point or have made a point that they can't technically argue with, and then they go to the like, you're not letting me talk place. These are all red flags, right? We've got to start getting ourselves out of these ridiculous types of conversations. Like, this is a waste of time and energy. This is just a total waste of time and energy. Leave that person alone. You know what? Okay. But there's also, after they do that, then there's also now they're going to end the conversation. Right? This conversation is over. They go to that place. I don't know if you've noticed. If you follow me on Facebook, you probably have noticed, but I don't play that game. Okay? I'm a last word type of gal. Okay? I'm finna put the last nail on the coffin here. So 9 times out of 10. So this gentleman became so upset and angry, he ended up hanging up on me because he couldn't stand the fact that I wouldn't let him. Like, he was saying things like, "You're interrupting me," and then I would be quiet and he would talk, and then I would say, "Okay." So with that understanding, and I would attempt to say something, and he would say, "I wasn't done. You're not letting me talk." And I'd say, "Okay." So with that understanding, and so that became, because he couldn't reroute me, like, I would back it right back up to where okay, now that you've had your emotional, display. Now, what I was saying was, right, because all of this stuff is an attempt to send you in a tailspin so that you forget what you're actually saying, because they're trying to undermine your position. They're trying to knock you off your square. And so if you remain, even after all of that, right back to square one. Okay, so the reason that I was saying that we should go to the law is because so this person ends up angry and hangs up on me. But he's not done the conversation, right? He's not done. Because he hangs up, and I'm fine with that. So what I did was I texted him very clearly what I was trying to explain to him. But no, that's not what I texted him. What I texted him was clues about his very poor conduct. I said, let me explain something to you. I wasn't asking you a question. You asked me a question. And with that understanding, the way that you treated me in the conversation was very rude and disrespectful. Because when you ask, you should honor them and allow them to answer that question. You don't get to dictate, blah, blah, blah. So the kind of stuff that I just said to you guys, I put very clearly in text. And he comes back with this absurd accusation that I told him he wasn't a man of God or something like that. And so now we're getting to the root of it, right? Because now I know the internal dialogue that's going on with him. The internal dialogue from the beginning was when he's presented that this thing shouldn't happen, and I presented, well, according to the law, it does. He felt insecure about his position under the Most High because it had never occurred to him, for whatever reason, that the reason the law tells us how to do it is because we're going to have to do it. And so he felt insecure, like that made him not a person of the Most High. And so all of that, then he was dumping onto me. Like, so he was all that time, he was defending his position under the Most High, that he is indeed a child of God, and like beating me up because he didn't feel like he was a child of God, because it didn't occur to him that there's laws for the things that we are and are not supposed to do for a reason. And so all that to say, right, his internal dialogue was who he was having. He was having the whole conversation was with what's going on in here. None of it was he actually having the conversation with me. He was having a conversation that I wasn't even part of, really. I was just like, I could have been the wall. He could have had that conversation with the wall, with the television, with his sneaker, because it was all going on in here. So we have to learn to, if you're a person who has a lot of stuff that you haven't worked out in your head about who you are and things like that, like, listen, family, I cannot, excuse me, I cannot, you can put your feet back up. I cannot over stress the importance of knowing who you are. Who are you? Know your own personality, know your own shortcomings, know your own strengths, know your own purpose, know who does the Most High call you. Who and what does the Most High call you? What has the Most High told you are your strengths and weaknesses? Right? I'm a hard person to do what he was trying to do to, because I already know what my strengths and weaknesses are, right? I already know what the Most High says about me. I already know what the assignment is. The Most High has revealed to me what the challenges are going to be, what the internal challenges are going to be, what the external challenges are going to be. And so for me, I'm hard to emotionally bait in that kind of a context, right? Because I'm like, okay, that ain't me. That ain't me. Okay, this part's me, right? Like the fact that I wanted to call him a little boy really, really badly. Like, listen, little boy, right? Because he's like 30, right? Now, no, 30's not a little boy. But when you're throwing a tantrum like a 5-year-old, so I knew that part was me, right? Like, I don't get to call him a little boy because that is going to insult him and just be hurtful. So that part's me. But the part where I say, well, I think that we should just go to the word. Him hearing that, as I said he wasn't a man of God, that part's not me, right? So you have to know who you are. You, again, as I said earlier, you have to know who you are in the context of the conversation. Are you the person who's seeking the understanding or lacking the understanding? Or are you the person who is giving the new understanding? Do not let someone treat you as if they're doing you a favor for you to bless them with insight, knowledge, wisdom, clues that you have. Right? Don't let someone do that to you. Do not cast your pearls among the swine. We will have much easier communications when we learn to value our communication enough that only those who can conduct themselves as if it is something valuable that they want even to have a conversation with you. And this is something that I'm learning, right? And this was a part of why I was so mean in so many conversations, because I'm in these conversations with people who have absolutely no value for the jewels I'm dropping. And I'm giving all of this good richness, and they are just spitting on it, shitting on it, stepping on it, crumbling it up. And I'm like furious. And the Most High is like, well, I did not tell you to run over there and give them fools this knowledge. They don't want this. What I tell you about your pearls and swine. So for me, it's like a lot of being less mean really just boils down to being more discerning about who I share with, who I give the goodness to, right? And so it is what it is, right? A lot of the aspects of me being mean in conversation have to do with the fact that I forget. The Most High told me and continues to consistently tell me they're not going to listen, but you still have to tell them, and you cannot be emotionally invested in whether or not they listen. But you still have to tell them. You still have to be clear. Everyone do I have to tell? No. Nope. Just those who the Most High says to tell. I don't get to pick that part. I don't get to pick and choose. Right? That part is on the Most High. But we have to be wise. Because how do we know who the Most High is telling us to speak to and who not? If we're just caught up in these emotional wars with people. because of their ignorance. If they weren't ignorant, they wouldn't be ignorant. Right? So having expectations of people to communicate on a level in which they just don't is another is another pitfall in communication. There is a thing that says if you tell a child the same thing over and over in the same way and they still don't get it, it's not the child who's the slow learner. Right? At what point do you choose a different strategy for getting the message across? Like, these things have to be taken into consideration. Right? So, yeah, so this brother ended up like having a whole tantrum and like, and then on into today where he got so mad that he, you know, and he finally revealed what his problem was, and that's that he felt like, for whatever reason, that he wasn't part of the kingdom. You know, I don't know. I didn't kick him out of the kingdom. That was his bag, you know. And I did tell him. I said, listen, that wasn't even a part. That was not even anywhere remotely in anything that I was considering. That was all you. So if that was a part of the conversation for you and like the center of the conversation for you, I'm going to need you to work on that. Like, you might need a therapist or something, because I didn't do that with you. You had that conversation yourself. So these are just some of the conversational pitfalls that we have to be careful of. We have to avoid emotionalism. We have to be able, guys, if you eat boogers and someone says, ew, you're nasty, you eat boogers, you can't be mad that people call you nasty if you want to participate in nasty behavior. If they call you a nasty booger eater, you get to decide whether or not you're going to eat boogers, but you don't get to decide whether or not other people think it's nasty. And you don't get to shut down communication because they're going to refer to your booger eating as your little nasty habit. And like, well, I'm not going to have this conversation with you until you honor my right to eat boogers. I do honor your right to have that nasty little habit. And I'm going to need you to honor my right to call it a nasty little habit. Maybe for you, it's your favorite snack time. You can call it your favorite snack time. You can call it your favorite snack time. I'm not going to call it your favorite snack time. I'm going to call it your nasty little habit, right? We've got to be able to deal with that. I know that there are scores and scores and scores of people out there who think I'm a blasphemer. Okay, they can call me a blasphemer. That is all right with me. That's how they perceive me. That's how they perceive me. I will not spend time beating them over the head over what a blasphemer I am not. May the Most High be the judge. There are scores and scores of people who believe that I am, and in a lot of ways I am, but who believe that I am prideful because I cannot be moved in many ways. I know things that the Most High told me to tell the people, and do not waver. And so when I'm speaking on those things and I do not waver, and people come with all their reasonings and their rationale and their group think and their group speak and their deep talk and their new wave stuff, and the Most High is like, look, here we go again. Go and tell them what I done told you to tell the people about this, right? There are like certain key things that the Most High has revealed to me. Like, listen, there's going to be times when you're going to have to share this and nobody's going to like it, right? They're not going to like it. They're not going to listen. They're going to get pissed off. They're going to beat you up. And so one of those opportunities comes and I share it and I'm unmoved. And then you never hear people call me more prideful, more out of order, right, as a woman for teaching on these things. Like, then when I'm in those places, when those things that the Most High has specifically given me to speak to the masses on, right? I don't get to, like, I would be silly to go into some big giant fight with them over whether or not I'm prideful, right? When the conversation goes to that place, you know what Jetty does? Jetty says, okay, well, I'm going to respectfully disengage from this conversation at this point. I'm going to go, right? Me to sit and scream and holler about how I'm not being prideful, blah blah blah. That's a waste of time, right? That's just a total waste of time, and it derails because now I'm in there talking about my personality. That's not what the Most High told me to go in there. Whether I'm prideful or not ain't got nothing to do with the fact that the Most High said literally do not put a tree up and decorate it in your house. Do not do that, the Most High says. Now, I know your grandma did it. My grandma did it. I did it. We all did it. It's pretty. Yeah, the kids like it. I know. It's the culture. I know. That's all well and good. Nonetheless, the Most High said don't do it. So when you do it, even knowing grandma did it and you did it and and the Lord knows your heart and la 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 la. Yeah, he knows your heart. Your heart's disobedient because he said don't do it. Now, if we want to talk about the fact that whether or not I'm prideful, now we're in a whole other thing now, right? So, but how if you're like that, how do you avoid becoming prideful? How do you have accountability? Well, because you have to have people in your life that you trust more than you trust you to look at you, right? Like, right? Or at least as much as you trust you. But I would even go so far as to say more, because for me, I'm really, really, really smart. So I can trick myself into some bullshit. Because, like, I'm really smart. So I need people who are smarter than me, right? And that's like one of those things where, like, they're smarter than me in areas where I need that, and I'm smarter than them in areas where they need that. And so they know that there's areas where Jetty is not going to catch herself in this bullshit. So let me help her out. And I know that that's why they're in my life. And so therefore, when that person says, excuse me, Jetty, know when to call that person into the conversation, family. They don't know you're in this conversation, but you're in it and you're like, wait a minute, am I being prideful, or am I being mean, or am I being abusive? Call that person into the room and say, hey, what do you think of this conversation? Now, people will say you're trying to tag team them and bring your friend, your backup. Listen, you don't have to, so what? Whatever, let people call it what they will. Call those people into the room that know you enough to be like, yep, that's you doing your bullshit again. You need to apologize. Or to be like, no, honey, no, you didn't do that. That's a lie. They're just trying to, like, derail a conversation into some place. Like, you have to have that. This, like, I'm only accountable to the Most High. I don't know how that happens without people. There are seasons when you're in solitude. I know that. The Most High deals with you directly. But then what he does is he creates your character so that you can then go and be in community with other people. And the Most High uses other people's situations, circumstances, dogs, cats, cartoons to speak to you. So if you don't have accountability in the form of other people, I don't know how you go through this faith walk, but that is going to be key for conversations, which brings me to my next point. Don't have private conversations with people that's not, listen, private conversations with anyone is really, really risky anymore because there's no accountability. People will have a whole conversation to themselves and say, you said X, Y, and Z. And you're like, we didn't even ever discuss that. Like the gentleman saying that I accused him of not being a man of God. Like, what? Wait, what? Never was that even part of the conversation to me. But in his mind, that happened. That, like, really happened to him. And so if there had been a witness, or if it had been a written conversation, then we would have been able to go back to that point and say, no, where did you think you heard that? Right? someone could facilitate the conversation that way. So when we're discussing these, this is why these discussions happen in the open, like at the entrance to the towns, the town squares, things like that. This is why these discussions happen that way. And this is why you have to be careful of those folks when there's some kind of a heated discussion going on and there are different points of view and things. When a person who is in, I guess, an opposing position than yours wants to take it to your inbox and have a private conversation. They want to take it where there's no accountability. They want to corner you to where you're more vulnerable because everything that's said out in the open, everyone is reading. I can't even tell you how many times I've had to say in a clearly documented written conversation, scroll up and please reread this conversation because I don't know what conversation you've been in, but the things that you're now accusing me of have yet to happen. The whole conversation is still there. I'll say it's still there. Scroll up. I don't even do the cut and paste every now and then, maybe. But I'm not one of those cut and pasters. You said boo, boo, boo. No, I'll be like, scroll up, read it. It is all still there. Record conversations that are private if you can when you're having these kinds of discussions. Because these people will get their feelings hurt and will try to destroy your character. Right? They'll run around and they'll say that you did this and you said this and you did this and you said this. And if you're nation building, you need to not let your good be ill spoken of. And so you have to protect yourself. So written conversations, recorded conversations, or conversations with witnesses are going to be important when you're talking about these difficult topics, when you're talking about difficult and controversial topics. Right? These are ways to protect yourself in hazardous conversations, right? In hazardous communications. Know your audience and know yourself, guys. These are perilous times indeed. These are perilous times indeed. Know the difference between someone insulting you and someone calling a thing what it is. I'm skinny. I'm skinny. Someone that says, wow, Jetty, you're skinny, is not insulting me. They're stating their shock or notice or whatever that I'm skinny. Now, if they're like, you skinny. Okay, that's different. But just to come over and be like, wow, Jetty, you really are skinny. Yeah, I really am. Now, if it's somebody that every time they see you, oh, God, girl, you so skinny. You skinny. You the skinniest thing I've ever seen. Now, that's insulting, right? They're trying to, like, do something, right? Because, like, you don't, every day, oh, you're brown. You're brown. You're brown. Yeah, no shit. Like, at what point are we going to get used to the fact that I'm brown, right? At what point are we going to get used to the fact that I'm skinny? Like, I'm skinny. But I can't be mad every time someone comes up to me and calls me skinny when I'm skinny. Yes, sometimes a person's being a hater. Usually it's a fat person that's being a hater that comes up and calls you skinny. Or a person who's not skinny but doesn't get the attention that you get and they can't figure it out. Like they got the nicer body or whatever and you're skinny but the boy they likes you. Then they're going to be like, that makes me skinny. She's skinny. That kind of stuff. But in general, we can't be that freaking sensitive. We can't be that freaking sensitive. We have to know the difference between somebody simply stating a fact, an obvious fact about our situation, and somebody trying to be a hater and trying to insult us. And if someone stating the fact of your situation is an insult to you, then that's a place that you need to make improvement on your situation. Like if someone coming up to me and calling me skinny all day, every day offends me, what's the answer to that? 50 squats and 50 push-ups a day. Okay? If I don't like to be so skinny that everyone that meets me has to call me skinny, then I have to do work to not be skinny. If I don't want to do work to not be skinny, I'm going to need to be okay with people saying, oh, wow, I didn't know you were that skinny. This is simple stuff. This is going to help in communication, guys. Because if every time someone says to me I'm skinny, I go through some emotional thing, I don't like them anymore, they're mean, they're evil, they're bad, then I can't build with anybody who is honest enough to just say, hey, you sure are skinny. Just like they would be like, whoa, you sure are tall. How come we can say to the tall person, wow, you're really tall, but to the short person, we're not allowed to say, wow, you're really short. How come we can say to the skinny person, wow, you sure are skinny, but not to the fat person, wow, you sure are fat? Why? Because we have created this society has created these paradigms to undermine honesty, integrity, and building on what is, and healing. Like, it's undermined all the stuff that will facilitate healing. And the first thing about healing is proper assessment of what the situation is. And whether we like skinny or don't like skinny don't have nothing to do with whether or not you are or are not skinny. They're different conversations, and maybe they have something to do with each other, but they're not the same conversation. And we have to recognize the difference in that. Someone saying to me, wow, Jetty, you sure are skinny, could be the highest compliment ever because they love skinny. But if I feel bad because I'm skinny and they say that, and now I feel insulted, I have failed in this communication because of my internal dialogue that says skinny is ugly, which my internal dialogue doesn't actually say that skinny is ugly. I don't think that one body type is particularly better than the other. I do prefer not to be as skinny as I am now, but I've been skinny all my life, and I think I look good. Even now in my skinny state, I still think listen here, for somebody 45 with 5 babies, listen, I'm really okay with the skin I'm in, right? But neither here nor there. The fact is, I have to be aware that just because maybe I do or don't like skinny, the next person that comes and speaks on how skinny I may or may not share how I feel about skinny. Maybe they hate skinny people, maybe they love skinny people. But when they come up to me and say, you sure are skinny, they're not speaking for my experience of what skinny means. Right? Brothers, when they say, yo, man, she thick, that's a compliment. When white people say that, that's not a compliment, right? It's like, it's different. It's different for a brother to be like, man, she got body, she caked up. That's like high, big compliments coming from a brother, right? But like a white woman is going to be really insulted by that, right? He said I was caked up and he called me thick. She's going to cry and melt down. But he wasn't insulting you. He gave you a compliment. Like, it's important not to impose your sensibilities on what other people are saying. These things are conversational, communicational pitfalls that we have got to grow up beyond. We've got to be able to first acknowledge, okay, he's correct, I am thick. Now, let's assess whether or not that's a compliment to him or an insult or neither one, just a statement of fact. Oh, yeah, you're right. Is that a problem? This is a really easy question to ask, right? Is that a problem? Not, is that a problem? Like if you say, yes, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. But no, genuinely, is that a problem? Because I'm trying to understand what your position is here, right? So is that a problem? And maybe they say, no, actually, I like it. You look really good in that dress. A thinner person really couldn't pull that off. Or maybe they say, well, yes, actually, since we've been talking about your heart, and I think that if you weighed a little less, your heart might not be so challenged. Or whatever, right? Whatever it is, we have to remove from it what our brain Our internal dialogue is about the thing, and realize you are communicating with another person who does not have your internal dialogue going on. They got a whole other something. And communication is more than just putting words out there. Communication isn't expression. Communication has a lot of responsibility in it. You have a responsibility to make sure, as the person who is communicating, who is putting the information out there, you have a responsibility to the people that you're speaking of. And we talked earlier about knowing your audience and all of that, to put it in a way that they can understand. But those folks have a responsibility to try to understand you and not to turn what you are saying into something that they already assumed you were going to say, or something that they already believe, or any of that. To really, if you are the receiver of the communication, you have a responsibility to get your head out of your own ass and listen to this person and take into account their experience. We are too far gone in this age to still be playing these kinds of games and to still be needing these kinds of talks so regularly. So, all that to say, this is why Jetty don't build with everybody, y'all. Jetty don't build with everybody. I'm not here for all black folks. I'm not here for all nothing. I'm here for the people that can show up, can communicate effectively, can get to work, know how to come and get to work, even when they're in their emotions. They can table them emotions if they need to, or they can deal with them right now if they need to, but that's not going to be a prevention to work. Right? Then know that the Most High is the authority. Then know that we all got issues we're working out, and that's willing to come and work on those issues in themselves and in other people. If you're not on that type of time, maybe there'll be a way that I can bless you, but please know you ain't doing me no favors to show up. And you're not going to break my heart to go. Know that. Know that. And it's not personal. I don't not like you, not love you. None of that. It's none of that. Okay? So that's my communication talk. Hope it wasn't too long and weird. We're over an hour, but y'all know how I do. We'll talk soon, everybody. Be blessed. Be gentle. Be wise. Be true. Okay? Team Yeshua, y'all. Jetty out.